31 games unbeaten, 4 full years without a loss. One of the greatest national teams in World Cup history. All experts picked them to win. They stood across a group of insurance agents, factory workers, and ex-prisoners of war. Hungary had already beaten them 8-3 in the group stage. This was supposed to be a walk in park, but the impossible happened. How did Germany beat Hungary, and why are people still arguing about it 70 years later? This is the World Cup victory that made no sense. To understand why this match still feels impossible, you have to understand who Hungary were. They were not just good, they were a generation ahead. The world called them the mighty Magyars, the golden team, Aranycsapat in Hungarian. Their captain was Ferenc Puskás, the galloping major, a short, stocky forward with a left foot that opposing defenders would later describe as a weapon. He could not run fast. He did not need to. He just scored anywhere, against anyone, in any conditions. Around him, Hungary built a team that played a brand of football the rest of Europe had not figured out yet. They moved their forwards into deeper positions, dragging defenders out of shape. They played 1-2s at speed. They passed in triangles when most teams were still lumping the ball forward. In 1952, they won Olympic gold in Helsinki. They walked through the tournament. Then came November 1953, Wembley Stadium. England had never lost a home match to a team from outside the British Isles. Not once. In 90 years of international football, Hungary turned up and won 6-3. England were not just beaten, they were embarrassed. Their tactics looked prehistoric. 6 months later, England wanted revenge. They travelled to Budapest. Hungary beat them 7-1. It is still the worst defeat in the history of the English national team. By the time the 1954 World Cup started in Switzerland, Hungary had not lost a single match in 4 years. Their unbeaten run stretched across 31 games. They were averaging more than 6 goals a match. They were the heaviest favourites in World Cup history, and Puskás was at the centre of it all. The best player in the world, 27 years old, untouchable.
Huge thanks to our sponsor, OK Jersey. If you're looking to add high-quality kits to your collection, from the latest 2026 season to iconic retros, they've got you covered starting at just £15. Please use my promo code MAUS to get an 8% discount.
On the other side of the bracket, West Germany were barely supposed to be there. This was their first World Cup since the end of the Second World War. The country had been split in two. Cities were still rubble. Rationing had only just ended. The economy was being rebuilt with American money. Germany was not a footballing power. It was barely a country. Their squad was a mix of factory workers, tradesmen, and ex-soldiers. Goalkeeper Toni Turek was an insurance agent. The captain, Fritz Walter, had been captured during the war and sent to a Soviet prison camp. He survived only because a guard recognized him from a football match and helped him avoid being sent to Siberia. Their coach, Sepp Herberger, had been managing the German national team since 1936. He was 57 years old. The football world thought his ideas were old-fashioned, and yet Herberger had a plan, a very specific, very strange plan. Hungary and West Germany were drawn in the same group. On June 20th, 1954, in Basel, they met for the first time. Hungary destroyed Germany, 8-3. 8-3. It looked like a public execution, but something strange happened in that match. Herberger had not put out his real team. He left out his best players. He started reserves. He told them to absorb the damage and survive. Because Herberger had read the tournament rules, he understood something nobody else did. Under the 1954 format, even if Germany lost to Hungary, they could still qualify for the knockout rounds by beating Turkey in a playoff. So Herberger sacrificed the Hungary game on purpose. He used it to rest his stars and to hide what his team could actually do. And there was something else, something nobody noticed at the time, but would shape the rest of the tournament. Late in that 8-3 game, a German defender named Werner Liebrich went into a heavy challenge on Ferenc Puskás. Studs up, right on the ankle. Puskás walked off limping. He had a hairline fracture in his ankle. He would miss Hungary's quarter-final and semi-final, and when he came back for the World Cup final, he would not be the same player. Some Hungarians believe the tackle was deliberate, that Germany had targeted him. There is no way to prove it. But the timing, the angle, the player chosen, all of it has been picked apart for decades. What is certain is this: after June 20th, Puskás was injured, Germany were through to the playoff, and Herberger had given away nothing about his real team. Germany beat Turkey 7-2 in the playoff. They were into the knockout rounds. In the quarter-final, they faced Yugoslavia, a strong team. Most people expected Germany to lose. They won 2-0. In the semi-final, they faced Austria. The Austrians were considered one of the best teams in Europe. Germany beat them 6-1. Suddenly, the team that everyone had laughed at after the Hungary match was in the World Cup final, and nobody could quite explain how. Hungary's path to the final was harder. In the quarter-final, they played Brazil. The match became known as the Battle of Bern. It was vicious. 3 players were sent off, players brawling in the tunnel afterwards. Hungary won 4-2. Puskás was not playing. He was on the sidelines, watching, his ankle still wrapped. In the semi-final, Hungary faced the defending champions, Uruguay. Uruguay had never lost a World Cup match in their history. 2 tournaments, unbeaten. Both times they lifted the trophy. Hungary beat them 4-2 in extra time. Sandor Kocsis scored twice. The Uruguayans walked off the pitch in shock. By the eve of the final, Hungary had the highest ELO rating any national team had ever recorded up to that point, a record that would stand for 60 years. Puskás declared himself fit. He would play. The team doctor was not so sure, but this was the World Cup final. He was going to play. Everything pointed to one outcome. Hungary lifts the trophy. The greatest team ever assembled completes the greatest run in football history. The end.
Speaking of those kits I mentioned earlier, OK Jersey isn't just about low prices, they're the gold standard. They have a 4.5 Trustpilot rating and everything from 90s legends to the 2026 World Cup lineup in stock. Use my code MOUSE right now to get 8% off your entire order.
July 4th, 1954. Wankdorf Stadium, Bern. 60,000 people. The rain had started in the morning and it would not stop. In the German dressing room, the players were doing something unusual. They were taking the studs out of their boots and screwing in longer ones. This was a new technology. Adidas, then a small German company run by a man named Adi Dassler, had built boots with screw-in studs that could be swapped depending on the conditions. On a soggy pitch, you could put in longer studs for better grip. Nobody else in world football had access to them. The Hungarians were wearing standard fixed stud boots. They would slip, Germany would not. The teams walked out. The crowd was loud, mostly Swiss, mostly neutral, but with a Hungarian lean. Everyone in that stadium believed they were about to watch a coronation. Then the whistle blew, and in 8 minutes, everything everyone expected came true. 6th minute, the ball is loose in the German box. Puskás, ankle-taped, gets there first. He hits it cleanly, 1-0 Hungary. 8th minute. 2 minutes later, Hungarian forward Zoltán Csibor runs onto a defensive mistake and slots it past Tony Turek. 2-0. The match was 8 minutes old and Hungary were already 2 goals up. The German players looked at each other. This was going to be the 8-3 all over again, maybe worse. And then, in the next 10 minutes, the impossible started. 10th minute, a low cross slips through the Hungarian defence. Max Morlock, the German forward, gets a foot to it from close range. 2-1. 18th minute, Germany win a corner. The ball is whipped into the box. There is a scramble, bodies everywhere. The ball pops out to Helmut Rahn at the edge of the area. He hits it first time. 2-2. From a 2-0 deficit in the 8th minute to 2-2 in the 18th minute. 10 minutes. The favourites had been pulled back to level by a team that nobody believed could even be on the same pitch. And now the rain mattered. Now the boots mattered. Now the rest mattered. Hungary, knowing they had to score, threw everything forward. The magical Magyars went into attack mode for the next 65 minutes. And they were everywhere. Nandor Hidekuti smashed a shot off the post. Sandor Kocsis, the top scorer of the tournament, hit a header off the crossbar. The German keeper Tony Turek made save after save, full stretch in the mud. The defender Werner Kohlmeier cleared 2 shots off the goal line. It should have been 3 or 4 to Hungary. It really should have been. But the goalposts were involved. The keeper was making the saves of his life, and the longer studs in the German boots meant they could hold their shape on a pitch where the Hungarians were starting to slide. As the clock moved past 80 minutes, the score was still 2-2. The match was heading for extra time, and Hungary was beginning to tire. 84th minute, 6 minutes left in regulation. The German winger Hans Schäfer wins the ball off Josef Bošík in midfield. He looks up. He plays a high, looping cross into the Hungarian penalty area. A Hungarian defender heads it out, but only weakly. The ball drops to the edge of the box. Helmut Rahn is standing there. Rahn takes one touch with his right foot to control it. He looks up. There is a teammate making a run. Two defenders shift to cover him. Rahn does not pass. He fakes the pass, drops his shoulder, and cuts the ball back onto his left foot. The defenders are frozen. Rahn hits a low, hard shot into the bottom corner. 3-2, West Germany. On the German radio broadcast, the commentator Herbert Zimmermann screamed, "Doch, doch, doch, doch. Goal, 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 goal." That clip is still played today. It is the most famous piece of audio in the history of German football. But the match was not over. There was still 6 minutes plus added time, and Hungary was not done. 87th minute. The ball is played into the German box. Ferenc Puskás, the galloping major, the best player in the world, ankle still taped, finds half a yard of space. He hits it first time. The ball goes into the German net. 3-3. The Hungarian players run to celebrate. The Hungarian bench is on its feet. The greatest team in the world has just rescued itself in the 87th minute of the World Cup final. And then the linesman raises his flag. Offside. The Welsh referee, Bill Ling, jogs over to consult. The conversation between the officials lasts for nearly a full minute. Almost an entire minute, with Hungarian players surrounding them, screaming, pleading. The decision stands. Goal disallowed. Offside. Decades later, when football researchers got hold of the original film footage and slowed it down frame by frame, they came to a different conclusion. The available analysis suggests Puskás was probably onside when the ball was played. If that goal had stood, the match would have gone to extra time. Hungary, with momentum, with the better team, would probably have won. The miracle of Bern would never have happened. The history of German football, of European football, of post-war Europe itself, would have been different. But the goal did not stand. The whistle blew shortly after. West Germany were the champions of the world. Captain Fritz Walter lifted the Jules Rimet trophy, the same Fritz Walter who had been a prisoner of war 10 years earlier. Germany became only the third country in history to win the World Cup, after Uruguay and Italy. And what happened next was bigger than football. Less than a decade earlier, Germany had been a defeated nation. The country was split. The economy was on its knees. Germans were not allowed to feel proud of being German. The flag was barely flown. The anthem was rarely sung. And then, 11 men in muddy boots beat the best team in the world. And a country that did not know what to feel about itself suddenly had something to celebrate. Franz Beckenbauer, who would go on to win the World Cup as a player and a coach, was 9 years old in 1954. He said later that for everyone who grew up in the misery of the post-war years, Bern was an extraordinary inspiration. The entire country regained its self-esteem. Historians now talk about the miracle of Bern as one of the founding moments of modern Germany. Not just a football match, the day a country quietly decided it was allowed to exist again. It happened at the same time as the Wirtschaftswunder, the German economic miracle. The two things became linked in the national memory.
That's it for today. One last reminder to check out OK Jersey via the link below. With fast shipping and premium quality for just £15, it's the best way to grow your collection without overpaying. Go grab your piece of football history now.
On the Hungarian side, the loss was devastating in a different way. Zoltán Tibor said it best. "We lost just once in 50 games. Unfortunately, it was in the biggest game of our lives. It is a tragedy." The Golden Team would never get another shot at the World Cup. 2 years later, in 1956, the Hungarian Revolution broke out. Soviet tanks rolled into Budapest. Many of the players, including Puskás, defected. The team scattered across Europe. Puskás eventually ended up at Real Madrid, where he became one of the greatest players of all time, but he never played in another World Cup. Some Hungarian historians have even argued that the loss in Bern was one of the small cracks that led to the 1956 uprising. The public had been told the team was a symbol of the new communist Hungary. When they lost, the lie cracked. People were ready to ask what else they had been told that was not true. It is the only football result in history that has been seriously linked to the fall of a regime. Now, here is where it gets uncomfortable. For 70 years, people have asked the same question. How did West Germany actually win that match? The official explanation is the simple one. Better tactics, better boots, the rain, a team that peaked at the right moment. Bad luck for Hungary, with the post and the bar and the disallowed goal. A goalkeeper having the game of his life. Most of that is true, but there is another version of the story that has never quite gone away. After the final whistle, the German players and staff celebrated, and several of the players became sick, vomiting, fevers. In the weeks that followed, multiple members of the squad came down with jaundice, a liver illness usually linked to infection through the bloodstream. Some Hungarian players, immediately after the final, accused the Germans of doping. The accusation was denied. It was retracted. There was no anti-doping test in 1954 because there were no anti-doping rules. The matter was officially closed, but it kept coming back. The German team doctor at the time, Franz Lugan, said the players had been given vitamin C injections to help with fatigue. That was the official line for decades. Then, in 2010, a German researcher named Eric Eggers started digging through the archives. He found references in old documents to a substance the doctor had given the players, not vitamin C. Pervitin. Pervitin is methamphetamine. It is the same drug that the German military used during the Second World War to keep soldiers awake and aggressive on long campaigns. By 1954, it was still legal in West Germany. Doctors prescribed it. It was in pharmacies. In 2013, a study from the Humboldt University in Berlin concluded that the West German players in 1954 had probably been given Pervitin during the tournament, not vitamin C. The evidence included the pattern of jaundice cases, which is consistent with multiple injections being given through shared needles, and statements from the team doctor's own surviving notes. The surviving players denied it furiously. Horst Eckel, who played in the final and lived into his 90s, said until his last interviews that he had never even heard the word doping. He said they were given vitamins, nothing more. Here is what is true. There were no rules against any of this in 1954. Doping in football was not banned. Performance-enhancing drugs of any kind were not regulated in international sport. So even if Pervitin was in those injections, no rule was broken. But it does change the story a little, or maybe a lot, depending on how you want to look at it. The most dominant team in football history, slipping in the mud in old boots, hit the post twice, missed an open net once, watched a perfectly good goal get ruled out for an offside that probably was not offside, and lost to a team of insurance agents and ex-prisoners of war who may or may not have been on amphetamines. That is the miracle of Bern. The boots were real, we know that. The rain was real. The injury to Puskas was real. The disallowed goal in the 87th minute was real, and probably wrong. The post and the bar and the goal line clearances were real. The tactics were real, and maybe the injections were real too. Football has had bigger upsets since. There have been smaller teams that beat bigger teams. There have been minnows that took down giants. But there has never been another match where a team unbeaten for over 4 years, the highest-rated national team ever recorded, the inventors of modern football, lost a World Cup final to a country that barely existed. Hungary's golden team is still considered by many to be the best team that never won a World Cup. The 1954 final is the only thing standing between them and history. And in Germany, the match has its own name, Das Wunder von Bern, the miracle of Bern. It is taught in schools. There are films about it. There are statues. The radio call of Helmut Rahn's goal is part of the German cultural memory in a way that no other piece of sport has ever been. 72 years later, we still cannot quite explain it. Maybe that is what made it a miracle. If you want to follow the story of Mourinho warned us 10 years ago, check out our video here.